start today's by introducing Mr. Bill Shelton. He is the Director of the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development. As the Director of the DHCD, Bill is responsible for the management and policy oversight of the agency, which provides community development and housing program support to communities across the Commonwealth. The department also administers statewide building codes. Bill works closely with the Secretary of Commerce and Trade and with the Governor to advise on community development, economic development, affordable housing, and state uniform code issues. Bill is an ex officio member of the Board of Commissioners of the Virginia Housing Development Authority and serves on the board of Virginia Community Capital Incorporated, the Commonwealth's Community Development Bank. Bill also serves as the Governor's State alternate for the Appalachia Regional Commission. A native Virginian, he was born in Amherst County and raised in the Charlottesville area. Bill was educated at Washington University, where he received a Bachelor of Arts degree in politics, and at Virginia Commonwealth University, where he received a Master's of Urban and Regional Planning. Aside from his official bio, he also has contact with an agritourism program, and that Bill and his family own and operate their own agritourism business in Albemarle County. Albemarle Cider Works, which makes hard apple cider. So I think Bill can truly appreciate the value of the agritourism program and the element of regional cooperation brings to these kind of processes. So let me welcome Bill Shelton.
Thank you, Bruce. It's great to be here. Great to be in Bath County in the region. The Department of Housing and Community Development has a lot of diverse interests, a lot of things we're involved in. At the core, we're a community development agency, which is great to be at VACO because as a community development agency, your customer are your communities in Virginia. And we start with that premise of trying to work with communities and figure out what their needs are, and then work backwards from what their needs are, and how do you solve these problems. So I've got about 30 years of experience doing this, but what we've experienced over the last, say, 15 or 20 years is that, in the economic development arena, what I would observe is that we probably spent a lot of time, if you went back 25 or 30 years ago, it was all about advertising and recruiting, and those are great strategies. We built a lot of industrial parks, we built a lot of infrastructure, we do a lot of different things. But what kind of dawned on us over time is we're missing some great opportunities for economic growth in communities by not looking at what I would call community-based assets. What our experience is that every community in Virginia has some very unique things that either they share in common with other communities or perhaps only that exist in those communities that are part of the character and fabric of their quality of life. And when you don't think about these things and you don't capitalize on them, you're missing a big opportunity to foster your economic growth. And we're here today to talk about Fields of Gold, which is an agritourism initiative that we help give some funding to, largely because of a great idea that came out of this region. But I want to context this. Bonnie's going to talk in a minute about the more details of this, but I want to give you kind of perspective of why this is so important for communities to be thinking about. Basically, when you talk about asset-based development, we're talking about trying to help communities, again, to identify those key assets and think of ways of how would you leverage that for your own economic prosperity, but also what I think is it preserves the character of the community. So what more could be more important than getting economic growth at the same time and building on the foundation that you already have that's uniquely yours? The broader definition of economic development will take you into a lot of different arenas. The tourism side is certainly one part of that, the industrial side, the small business side. The beauty part about asset-based development is it touches on many of those. It is about offering, again, new opportunities to expand local and regional economies with homegrown businesses, things that are unique to your area. It allows opportunities for folks living in your communities or moving to your communities to use and leverage those assets that are certainly not likely to leave. For those communities in Virginia that experienced kind of industrialization back at the turn of the last century, and then over the course of enjoyed the prosperity of that over 50, 60 years, and then maybe 100 years, and then things change. The world changes, things that came to your area leave your area. And this is a tourism jobs, where do they fit in the scheme? Well, they're not the highest paid. They're not, you can go through all the different aspects of the pros and cons of that. But by bringing visitors to your area and showcasing the talent and the attributes of your community, you create an awareness of the high quality of life that exists in your communities. And what I think has happened, we're already seeing it happen anecdotally, as more people come and experience that quality of life, that lifts the boat for many other folks. And we're seeing people who want to come and look at the businesses there from outside the area. You see folks who come in for tourism who say, wow, this is important, we should be here, this is a great place to be. And we're starting to get some recognition among the economic development, broader community, that these assets are an attractant. And they can market this to businesses and other larger scale businesses coming to an area. So I think that we're kind of growing this from the inside out. It's kind of new, but I think most people will start to connect with the fact that this is bigger than just the tourism-based jobs that are created, but in fact will drive your economic development perhaps to a much higher level. What we're trying to do is to seek to uncover and utilize the strengths within the community, again, for economic development. It does mobilize the talents of your community. When you start thinking about, and when you hear Bonnie talk about fields of gold, you think about it, their farmers already exist there, there are already agritourism businesses that are there. The question is, how do you enhance them and grow them and make them economically viable? Bruce mentioned that we have this little farm-based business that's kind of evolved into something. When we started out, we had no idea that we would end up being a farm winery, which is a cidery, but and go there. But what you find is, if you're going to make it economically, you've got to find a way to turn whatever you're doing, which is on the commodity end of thing, like growing an apple, you're competing with not only Washington State, but South America or New Zealand or somewhere else. You can't compete. What we can produce for $20 a box, they're doing it $10 a box. So, it's just, the economics don't work. But you press that box of apples and turn it into juice that's fermented and to put it into a bottle that sells for $16 a bottle, that translates to about $200 per box of apples. So that gives you a little, somewhere between $150 to $200, depending on how you sell it. So that high value added is what you're really talking about in agriculture. It's also, if you're leveraging other community assets, is how do you turn those things that aren't giving an economic yield into something that's a profit center for your communities. Typically, these are very much community-driven, meaning they're not external. Nobody should come from outside your community and tell you, here's what your assets are, this is what you ought to be doing. You've got to feel it, you've got to know it, and you'll know it when it happens. If you already, every one of these meetings we ever go to, where people start talking about these things, they almost, it's not hard on their end, because it's almost when you get there, the community has caught fire on something. I mean, they're excited about it, there's energy behind it, people are coming to meetings, they're talking about what the opportunities are, and quite frankly, all we have to do is kind of get out of the way. Just kind of give it a little bit of support, whatever resources we can bring to the table. But it's really taken off, and there's some very notable examples of things that have happened. Things that we're working on statewide that are examples. You don't always think about all these, but in Southwest Virginia, we worked a lot on traditional arts, culture, the heritage, the music, the artisan art, if you will, and artisan agriculture as part of the art fabric of the community. There's also increasing interest in many areas of the Commonwealth of looking at your outdoor recreation and natural resource assets. Virginia's a beautiful place, and just about every community here has these assets. What we don't do particularly well is figure out how do you capitalize on that. How do you get the traveling public to come in? How do you get them to stay there? And then how do you grow that as an economic base? Farming, which you're going to hear a lot more about today, agriculture, and all the way down to any aspect of farming you can think of that just about the public wants to see this, and it's amazing to me. We certainly get it on the farm. We have people driving in from D.C. and we just want to see where apples grow. Okay, but it's a connection more and more to where your food comes from, where the products come from. It's the artist who's doing the pottery. They want to see the studio. They want to experience that. Rather than go to a store and just buying something, they want to be able to go, see it produced, know the artisan, feel part of the community. I mean, as we've gotten bigger in big metropolitan areas, people are losing that connection to a sense of place. This brings them back and makes them feel, again, part of your community. And that's why it's such a great economic development strategy, because once they feel part of it, a lot of them are going to want to think about, maybe this would be a great place to bring my life in the future. Another example is a lot around forestry. Many of you represent areas that have great forest products. We see a lot of places where you have the timber cutting, but not the value added, not turning it into furniture, not doing higher-end value-added products out of timber. We tend to cut, saw, and ship rather than doing the production and the value added in our community. So this is, these are strategies we should be promoting. The civic leadership that's promoted in this, that's an important thing because every time we do one of these things, the folks who have not been in the mainstream of leadership in our communities, once they get engaged in these efforts, end up being much more active civically. And that doesn't mean necessarily running for public office, but on boards and commissions and volunteering and becoming much more active. So we see big benefits to that end of it. And then one hidden opportunity, and we're doing a lot in this arena, is that as communities have aged, we have assets in the communities that are sitting vacant and fallow. How do you turn them into productive assets? The reuse of older buildings ends up being part of those assets in the community that can also be repurposed, that we think have a lot of opportunities. I mentioned the two that we perhaps are most notable in Southwest Virginia. There was, you'll hear the branding of the Crooked Road. You'll hear that one over and over again. This started, I want you to know how this started though, because everybody thinks that there was a magic in how this all got created. It started with downtown revitalization. There was one town that wanted to do downtown revitalization, and we just said, you know, you got to do something here that's kind of what's going to make you different from everybody else. And after much struggling, it was a little town in Clinton, Virginia, in Dickinson County, and the mayor said, like, well, I don't know. And he said coal. There's lots of places that coal, but coal was also not the, at that time was kind of depressed. It's depressed again now, but they were trying to struggle with it. And he says, is there anything uniquely yours that you can capitalize on? And the mayor said, well, he was kind of joking, I think. He said, we're the birthplace of Dr. Ralph Stanley. What had just happened was, within that year previous, was the movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou was out there, and the #1 grossing CD of traditional music was the Oh Brother, Where Art Thou CD. So, you know, we got it pretty quickly, and so they approached Ralph, and he agreed to have a Stanley Museum built in Clinton, Virginia. We took an old building, converted it to the Ralph Stanley Museum. Ralph brought all of his memorabilia in the back of his pickup truck in and donated it to the town. But we realized that just the Stanley Museum wasn't going to be enough. So at a meeting at the Carter Fold, there was a meeting to link together all of the music venues in Southwest Virginia. And every community, and I don't talk about the venues, the communities in Southwest Virginia came to the table and said, we want to be part of it. So that's that meeting where everybody had the aha experience and said, this has power, this is something we're all excited about. And so that became the Crooked Road. So that was going pretty well. I mean, it's like, you know, without even a professional staff at the beginning, it was a lot of energy and a lot of opportunity to grow. What happened after that is that we were asked to look at artisans and looking at all the artisans in Southwest, so that became around the mountain. And then we started mulling over this whole thing. If you marketed all this thing as one, doesn't that make it more impactful? And so as we were growing this, the legislature, I think, started to take note. And so then came the Southwest Virginia Cultural Heritage Foundation, which is an umbrella now over all of this cultural heritage program in Southwest Virginia. And just recently we were awarded a $1 million grant to add outdoor recreation and tourism trails and all the linkages, natural areas, bringing it in under that same umbrella. So we've gone over the last 10 years from no coordinated effort in this cultural heritage arena to now what's probably been conservatively, if you count the downtown revitalization projects that were generated off of this, somewhere around $40–50 million worth of coordinated investments from about 10 different state and federal agencies, and lots of resources coming in. It didn't happen overnight, but it gives you a sense of what the potential is, and if you start to collaborate, work together, and work in some similar focus, these things do grow. So that brings us to Fields of Gold, which we're going to hear more about in a minute, but it's at that early stage where we see the potential for this to go forward, kind of pulling together, an area in the Shenandoah Valley where you have rich agricultural experience. I mean, I went to school in Lexington, I lived in Charlottesville, I grew up in this area, traveling through here all the time. I know the agricultural heritage, but people outside of the area only vaguely know that, and we can do a lot more to promote that. It would be good for the agricultural interest, it would be good for the communities. We were at the launch event for Fields of Gold, and the regional economic development person was there supporting it. he gets it, that this really is going to be a branding of his region that will cause it to be attractive to lots of people outside. It's all about making an impact, and that's where I want to close. So we don't do this just because we think, oh, this is neat to kind of, go listen to all the music and see all these things. It is about increased tourism in Southwest Virginia, and I don't have the exact up-to-date numbers, but the last time they did the visitation numbers, I think out of the 15 top increases in tourism in Virginia, 5 of them were in Southwest Virginia. That's significant. If you know anything about the history in Southwest Virginia, when I started in state government 30 years ago, the mantra in Southwest Virginia is they had a tourism director for the state who said all tourism was east of Roanoke, and he said more of it was east of Richmond. And so Southwest Virginia was an afterthought on tourism. Now it's a focus. Big deal. Small business development. We have more and more people now are coming in, opening up bread and breakfast, wineries, restaurants, antique stores. All of them are focusing on what is the traveling public that's coming through this region, what do they want to see, and what are they going to do. So we're seeing a lot of new business development. It's leading to increased employment. That starts slow because these are small businesses as they grow, but you're starting to see them grow out. We're in the process in Southwest Virginia of hiring someone just to do the tracking of data that shows the increase in taxes coming into the communities, the transit occupancy tax, the increase in employment, the new business formation that can be directly attributed back to these kind of strategies. It is about documenting. It's not like the one company that comes in with 250 jobs and a $15 million investment. It's about 600 companies, businesses, all of 1, 2, 3, and 4 employees, all making investments that collectively will be more than that one firm. And they won't all close at the same time, and they won't ever move out of your area. So these are very important things. Again, it supports existing small businesses, but the last two are perhaps the most important to me because I'm in the community development business. One, they lead to new collaborations among communities. In fact, when we finished up on the Field Goal launch event, Robin Sullivan, who's the economic development person, said the most important thing as far as he was concerned is to see the communities in this region collaborating on a new initiative and to see them coming together in new ways. So I think that's the most important thing to recognize, one of the most important. And then finally, back where I started, is it is about increasing the quality of life in the region. More and more people will realize that what you already know, because you live there, what a great quality of life that you have in your region, and it will pay dividends far beyond anything that you could do, in my opinion, in other arenas. So that's the story, and that's why we think it's important. We've invested in it. We'll continue to do it. We think it's a worthwhile endeavor. We hope the communities in Virginia will recognize this as just as much mainstream economic development as anything else you do. It is about growing your communities and doing it from the inside out. So that's my story. I guess there'll be questions at the end, Bruce. Is that, yeah, let me do that. So make sure everybody gets a chance to.
Thank you, Bill. Next up in this process is Bonnie Riedesel. She's with the she's executive director with the Central Shenandoah Valley Planning Commission District, and she's the brainchild behind all of this. She is. Bonnie has worked as a planner for the Central Shenandoah Planning District Commission since 1994 and was appointed the executive director in 2008. Her work with the CSPDC includes community development, economic development, affordable housing, hazard mitigation, transportation, and greenway planning. Bonnie has extensive experience working with communities across the valley on flood mitigation projects, community improvement projects, bicycle and pedestrian planning, and identification of resources for community projects that improve the lives of the citizens of the Central Shenandoah Valley area and surrounding. She has helped establish a nationally recognized flood mitigation program that's brought in over $8 million to the region and removed hundreds of people from harm's way. She was instrumental in developing the first regional bicycle and pedestrian program that identified and mapped over 40 bicycle routes and promotes activities that make communities and neighborhoods more bicycle and pedestrian friendly. Most recently, she has helped launch the Field of Gold's Agritourism program that's bringing together farmers, agritourism operators, and local governments in the 7-county area. The purpose of Fields of Gold is to capitalize on one of the region's greatest assets, agriculture, and to market and promote the Shenandoah Valley as an agricultural destination, while at the same time creating jobs on and off the farm. Bonnie grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, and earned her bachelor's degree at the University of South Carolina. She moved to Virginia with her family after surviving Hurricane Hugo in 1989. Please welcome Bonnie.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, Bruce. And Bill, thank you for your introduction and presentation. It's a great segue into what I'm going to talk about. Bill talked about sort of finding your assets in your community, and I'm going to talk about one of the assets that we've identified and that we're building and capitalizing on. But every community, as Bill said, has an asset that they can build on. So as I go through my presentation, be thinking about your own community, your own locality, and your own region, and start thinking about what are your assets there that you can build on and build a foundation. This is just one example of what we did in the central Shenandoah region, in the Shenandoah Valley. If I can figure out how to use this clicker here. There we go. The Fields of Gold region, and I'm sorry my PowerPoint, I sent it as a PDF, so we don't have a full screen, so if you can't see it, you might want to shift over this way a little bit. But the Fields of Gold region includes 7 counties. I think your program says 6 counties. We just added Page County, rightly so. They're one of the top 5, they're in the top 5 ag-producing counties in the state. So we have 7 counties and 5 cities in the Shenandoah Valley that are part of our Fields of Gold region. Of course, the central Shenandoah region is located in the heart of the historic Shenandoah Valley. So what is agritourism? It's a word that I hadn't even heard of 2 years ago, and now I use it 5 or 6 times every day in my vocabulary, probably about 20 times in this presentation. But agritourism is technically defined by the state of Virginia as any activity carried out on a farm or a ranch allowing members of the general public to come onto the farm for recreational, entertainment, or educational purposes to view or enjoy rural activities. We've broadened our definition of agritourism for our program to also include the farm-to-table restaurants and retail that serve sell agricultural products such as maple syrup or jams and jellies or cheeses and those kinds of local products. Some of the agritourism activities that we talk about, it's very broad and it's just a huge variety of different types of activities that you can include in the definition of agritourism. Wineries, breweries, cideries, as Bill mentioned, farmers markets, produce stands. The farmers market, it's just been phenomenal how many farmers markets are just popping up in all of the communities, and there's a great interest in people wanting to buy local and buy fresh. So the farmers markets and the produce stands are becoming very popular. Farm tours and farm stays, as Bill mentioned, people just want to see what an apple orchard looks like, or pick your own strawberries or pumpkins, and people want to feel that connection to where their food comes from and see what farming is all about. It also includes what we call agritainment, things that you can do for fun on the farm, hay rides and corn mazes. There's ag festivals. The county next to us, Highland County, they have a maple festival every year. There's only 2,500 people that live in the county, but on those weekends, 50,000 people come to the Highland County Maple Festival. So it's a huge attraction. County fairs, of course, are very big throughout the state, but particularly in this area. And then the farm-to-table restaurants. There's a big interest, an appetite, if you will. People want to be able to eat local. A lot of the restaurants are promoting that their food is locally, comes from the local area, and local farmers, and they promote their restaurants, and people will seek out those types of restaurants that serve local products. Trout farms and fee fishing farms, pick your own farms, from strawberries to pumpkins to apples, you name it. There's a lot of those in this area. And then also event facilities and ag venues. A lot of people are wanting to have their weddings at a winery or on a farm or something like that. So ag venues are becoming very popular for weddings, parties, and reunions. I want to talk a little bit about the agriculture in our region, the Fields of Gold region, the area that I just mentioned, the 7 counties and the 5 cities. This was, it's big business in our area. Farming has been very important to the Shenandoah Valley since the beginning of time. We have a very diverse agricultural community. We just don't grow corn. We do everything. We have dairy, we have beef, we have turkeys, chickens, all kinds of crop agriculture, orchards, grape vineyards, just a very diverse agricultural industry in this area. 4 of our counties are within the top 5 agricultural producers in Virginia. Rockingham County is the #1 ag producing county in the state, followed by Augusta County, and then Shenandoah and Page are the 4th and 5th top agricultural producers in the state. And then Bath and Highland and Rockbridge are also competitive agricultural localities with numerous types of livestock operations. So agriculture is big business in this particular area. We have almost 1 million acres of farmland in the Fields of Gold region. We have nearly 6,000 productive working farms in the region. And this is a number that's very impressive to me, that 30% of the state's agricultural products sold come from our region. So not only is agriculture important to our region, but it's also important to the state. We also have a number of century farms. Those are farms that have been in the same family for 100 years or longer. Tourism, another big industry in our area. The Shenandoah Valley is recognized worldwide for its historic and scenic beauty and abundance of natural resources. In 2011, travelers spent over $1 billion in our region. We also had, I think in the 2010 Virginia Tourism Corporation survey, there were almost 7 million people that traveled to this area outside of the travel here to visit. We also have, it's one of the most beautiful places, of course, in the state. We have the Blue Ridge Parkway, the Skyline Drive, the Shenandoah National Park, all the forests that are up here. We have some, headwaters of the James and the Shenandoah rivers originate in our region. So we have a lot of, natural beauty and outdoor amenities that people want to come from all over the world to see. So it made a lot of sense for us to merge those 2 industries together to create an agritourism program. Those were our greatest assets, agriculture and tourism. It was kind of a no-brainer for us. We didn't have to think very hard to figure out what our assets were when we came up with this agritourism program. So what is agritourism? It's really all about the experience. It's not, going to, the farm and picking a pumpkin and going home. It's all about the experience that you can go out and enjoy with your family, and then, continue on. Maybe you're visiting the area and you want to go to a winery, and then maybe later you go into town and you have a meal at one of the farm-to-table restaurants, and you stay out, maybe at one of the bed and breakfasts that are on the farm. So it's all about the experience that the person or the family or the individual is enjoying. That's what agritourism is all about. And it gives the general public the opportunity to enjoy other types of activities, mostly outdoor activities that your community can offer. And it also rebuilds those connections between the urban populations and the rural populations. As Bill said, people from DC, they just want to drive out and see where apples come from. And so we're building that connection with the the person and the farm and the farmer. Agritourism has some economic benefits that I want to talk to you a little bit about. As more of our farmers struggle to keep their farms productive, agritourism offers an avenue for them to perhaps have a second income or to generate some additional revenues and to keep their farm in production. It also spurs economic activity for entrepreneurs or for value-added products and generates expenditures by tourists that can help the community with their tax bases. Fields of Gold, how did we come up with that name? We pretty much just came up with it because we thought that it was a name that was reflective of the fertile fields that we have and the diversity of the agricultural products here. The gold kind of symbolizes the economic benefit that you can have with a program like this. And one of the things that a colleague of mine told me that I thought was very interesting about the Shenandoah Valley, it is one of the few places in the world where the 4 F's can be grown without irrigation. And that's food, fiber, feed, and fuel. And so we have a very unique place here in the Shenandoah Valley, and we're trying to capitalize on that through this agritourism program and through this branding of Fields of Gold. So what have we done? Again, this is something that you can take back to your communities and do. But when we started with this program and came up with this idea a little over a year and a half ago, we had to put some things in place if we wanted to be successful. So the first thing we did was we applied for funding to the Department of Housing and Community Development. It was a regional grant that we received, a CDBG regional planning grant, and we matched it with local funds from our jurisdictions in the Fields of Gold region. And we put together a structure that I think has worked very well. We knew we had a lot of things to do, and so we needed a very good structure to accomplish this, because one person, one agency couldn't do it all. So we created a steering committee that was appointed by all the local governments. They had 2 representatives, and we asked that one person at least be from the farming or the farmer or from the farming community. So we wanted to make sure that we had that private sector involvement from the very beginning. And then we developed these 4 very active subcommittees, and each subcommittee had a task that they were assigned so we could accomplish all the things that we wanted to accomplish during this planning phase. We had 1 year to get it all done. The first thing we did was we developed this coalition of partners. We brought in the private sectors, the farmers, the farming community, groups that support farmers. We also had our economic development directors, our tourism directors, and we built this very strong coalition of partners to help us go through this planning process. We held a number of agritourism workshops throughout the region to really give the farmers and entrepreneurs an idea of what agritourism is, how to grow a business if they already had one, or if they wanted to start a business. What are the marketing issues that they have to deal with? What are the liability issues? All the things that go into building an agritourism business and allowing the public to come onto their farm. So we held these throughout the region, and they were very well attended. We also participated in some other ag-related events, such as the Highland Maple Festival that I mentioned, the Virginia Farm Show, which brings in about 10,000 farmers and vendors from throughout the Southeast. And we also sponsored our first Shenandoah Valley Agritourism Festival as well. The other thing we did early on is we inventoried our assets. We knew we had a lot of agritourism businesses out there. We knew we had wineries and pick-your-own farms and farmers markets, but we really didn't know, where they all were and what the characteristics of them were. So we did this. We launched an online survey, and we collected about 150 surveys from throughout the region from these businesses, and we analyzed them, and we categorized them into those 11 different categories, whether they were an ag venue, whether they were a farmer's market, whether they were a pick-your-own farm, a winery, or what have you. So we categorized over 135 of these businesses into these categories, and then we mapped them. We also have a Google-based map that we designed, so you can go on our website and click on any of those icons, and it will take you to those agritourism operators, tell you where they're located. You can get directions, you can get their information about what they sell on their farm, what their hours of operations are. So it's a good tool for the visitor if they want to find, where are all the wineries, where are the farmers markets, where can I go, get pumpkins. So we have this map product that we've been able to produce with these planning funds. The other thing we did was we began to market the program. We needed to find out what we had first before we could go out and start marketing. So we've developed a marketing plan, and we're starting to slowly implement some of the recommendations in this marketing plan. But we do have a Facebook account, we have a micro website on Fields of Gold, and we started to produce some marketing materials. But we hope that as we go forward with this, we'll be able to have our own standalone website that'll be very interactive and robust, and we can really use that as a way to market the entire Shenandoah Valley and all the agritourism operators that are in the Shenandoah Valley and part of the Fields of Gold program. The other thing we did, which was very important, we knew that agritourism benefited the communities, but we really didn't have the numbers and the facts and figures to back that up. So we hired a consultant to come in and really study the benefits, the economic benefits of agritourism. There's a lot of data out there for agriculture, and there's a lot of data out there for tourism. There wasn't a lot for agritourism. So it was a challenge to be able to get that data. But we came up with some great, we just released the study a couple of weeks ago. And what the study found was there was $22 million spent on agritourism last year in our Fields of Gold region. And there's a potential to increase that by a little over 9% each year. There are 226 agritourism businesses in our region that support 700 jobs. Well, we've only been able to identify 135, so we know there's twice as many out there that we haven't tapped into yet. And that there were 6.7 million visitors that travel to our area, and many of them travel to this area to experience outdoor recreation and all the things that we have to offer in this area. So we believe that there's a potential to get the tourist here, the visitor here, to enjoy the agritourism operations that we have. The other thing that they found during the study that I found interesting is that the majority of people that came to our area to visit were coming to visit family and friends. And it was those family members and friends that were taking them out to these agritourism businesses and facilities and operations. So I think word of mouth, if you can educate your general citizens, your local citizens about what you have, when their family and friends come to visit, they're going to take them to these places. So what do we have planned? We just completed our planning phase. We had a one-year planning phase, and we accomplished all of those things that I just mentioned. We need to raise some more money to continue everything. And but what we want to do is to continue building our partners and working with groups that support farmers, our tourism directors, our economic development directors, all of our cities, all of our counties, to continue this partnership development. There's been a lot of interest in this program. Everybody is excited about it. There's a momentum. We want to continue it. We want to create the website that I talked about, so we have a standalone website that we can really use to start marketing this program. We want to brand the Fields of Gold image We want to be able to take it beyond just the Fields of Gold region. We want to take it statewide and beyond. We want to implement our marketing plan, and we want to develop a business support program for our farmers. A lot of our farmers, they don't know how to deal with the general public. They need, some of them have even said, I don't really like people. I really don't know what to do with them when they come on my farm. And so they need to be trained on marketing techniques, how to market their business, how to market, how to cross-promote. Like somebody coming to a winery, if they tell them, well, hey, there's a bed and breakfast on this farm over here, so they can start marketing each other and collaborating on some marketing events that everybody wins when they do that. And then we want to be able to seek the funding to sustain this program because it takes a lot of resources, a lot of financial resources and human resources to keep this program going. So what are some of the things, we just, as I said, we just finished our one-year planning cycle, and we looked back and we think we were successful. We've gotten a VACO award, and we've also gotten an award from the Center for Rural Virginia for our collaboration. And so we kind of looked back, what made this program successful, and we kind of came up with some things that we thought we did right and that you all can maybe use some of these techniques. But I think one of the things we did is we did our homework. Early on, like I said, I didn't even know what agritourism was when we first got into this, but we researched it, we inventoried our assets, we pulled in the experts, we pulled in the farmers and the farming communities and those agencies that work with farmers like Farm Bureau and Farm Credit and Virginia Cooperative Extension. We pulled them in and they gave us a lot of good advice on what agriculture, what's important to the farmer. And so we did our homework early on and up front. And then the other thing I think we did well is we built this coalition of partners. We brought in the farmers, the farming communities, organizations that support farming, the local governments, the state governments, the tourism and economic development organizations, and we brought them all together to the same table. And I think that really helped us. Everybody bought into the program, from the bottom up and the top down, and everybody felt ownership with this program. And I think that was one of our strengths in making this program successful. And then we divided all those tasks up. I mean, it was just too much for one agency or one locality to do. And so we had these very active subcommittees that just rolled up their sleeves and got in there, and they were given a task, and they did it well. But I think that's important. You just can't do it all. You have to divvy up the task and let everybody work on their own part in their own section and bring it all together at the end. I think we did a good job with public relations and communications. We had a lot of good press coverage. We kept the media informed about what we were doing. We had a Facebook account, and we had a website, and we did some marketing on our own. So I think we did a good job with the public relations. We were always at events. We had a booth, and I think that helped us a lot with the program. And then we were successful in getting some funding to kind of keep things going. And we have some grants that we've written that we're hoping to hear about to continue this. And then I think we didn't have anything to do with this, but I think it helped. It was just the time was right. There's a lot of interest in agritourism. People want to know where their food comes from. They want to get to know the farmer. There's this whole, movement, local food movement, and I think that we were just here at the right time, and I think that helped a lot. I guess I should have put challenges first and then ended with successes, but I'll end with we did have some challenges. One of the challenges is the diversity of agritourism. I mean, it's everything from chasing a pig to drinking a glass of Cabernet. Hopefully you don't do that at the same time, but it is a huge variety of what is defined as agritourism. And so that was a challenge, just trying to kind of make everybody happy as we defined agritourism. Also the size of our region, 7 counties, that's big, 5 cities, 2 planning districts, our planning district and then part of another planning district. So just the size of our region was a challenge. Our region is larger than Rhode Island and Delaware combined, so that just tells you how big it is. And then the multiple stakeholders from the private sector, state and local governments, elected officials, just trying to keep everybody informed and up to speed on what we were doing was challenging. But I think we did a good job because everybody bought into the program early on. And then the resources needed. There's never enough money to do all the things you want to do. And that was very much a challenge in how you could, keep everybody, paid to continue. And things are expensive, as you all know. And then communication, again, just because of our size of our region and so many people involved, that was a challenge, just keeping everybody informed about what we were doing. And just as the picture of that mother pig up there that's trying to keep everybody happy, I felt like her sometimes. But that was one of our main challenges, just trying to keep everybody happy. That is our Fields of Gold program, and again, I'm sure you all have programs that are similar, or at least you have an asset that you've defined, and that you are trying to capitalize on those assets back in your community. And this is just one example of what we've done in the Shenandoah Valley that I think is going to be with us. There's, like I said, everybody's interested in it. They've invested in it, and they want to see it grow. So with that, I'll ask Bruce to come up and introduce our next speaker.
Thank you, Bonnie. Last but not least, I'd like to introduce Mr. Tracy Pyles. Tracy has served on the Augusta Board of Supervisors since January of 1996 and is presently the chairman. He's a past member of the VACO Board of Directors, and he's also served as chairman of the Central Shenandoah Planning District Commission and the Augusta County Service Authority. He holds a BS from JMU in Political Science and served in the U.S. Navy from 1967 to 1971. He retired from American Safety Razor, where he was corporate commodity manager for plants in Virginia, Tennessee, Mexico, the Czech Republic, Israel, with sourcing materials from around the world. He has 3 grown sons and 1 grandson, and now lives in Churchville in the Augusta County. Mr. Pyles?
I was so glad to be invited to this. This is my first time in 17 years I got to be a speaker. So I had this thing going around and, look at me. I'm one of the big shots here this time. But you will learn after this that not all speakers are equal. So we're glad, and some gets 5 on the seat of the pants. I want to give a perspective from a supervisor's angle. What this has meant to us, and what can you tell your constituents about why you're involved with this? Does it make a difference? When Bonnie was talking about one of those piglets who's not happy, that'd be me. I don't like to spend money on anything. It's got to, we got to watch where our dollars go and all that. So how tourism? Oh, that's just fancy payouts. That's not for us. But this is a good program because it's really business related. If you go through the different things that happen and how they happen and what they do, it's just a typical business model. First thing you got to do is understand your assets. I think that was a big deal to know what all we have all together. We have all these people who have done all this investment, and we ignore it, and we don't help them. And whenever we're doing something, people, if you're going to bring in a manufacturing plant, somebody will complain about, you're going to hurt our quality of life. You're just doing it for your income. I think we're doing it to improve people's quality of life. I think we're doing it not for the money, but so they can have a greater wealth. And I think that's what we want to do with this tourism, is help these folks have greater wealth. If we establish their wealth, we'll get our share of it. But that's what we want to do. We want to keep people whole. So when they identify the assets and you look at it, you say, okay, I've got all these things. So then you can look at the synergisms that happen. We've got, somebody's going out to a pumpkin patch, and they've driven a couple hours, if they knew there was a nice bed and breakfast, they might just stay there. These folks that are driving down from Washington, D.C., you know, what else is there to do? You don't want to come for just one thing. We have a nationally known facility in Augusta County called Polyface Farms. On that movie Food Incorporated, I think it was, Joel is this guy who looks like, you know, a country bumpkin, a big hat and a hit, and then he talks like an IBM computer. It just comes out, he knows everything, and I think he does. But he irks people because he's doing things a different way. But in Augusta County, you can see it all the ways. Joel does it with, you know, he moves the turkey coop every day. And in the process, they are reinvigorating the soil with their fertilizer, having a new place to eat. The food's better, and he does that all. We also have the factories. We have, you know, the little turkeys go in at this end, and 12 weeks later they come out this end. They're big, they never saw Sunday. They're just out there, and then we, you know, and then they go to the next county and meet their fate. So you have all sorts. That's what they do in Rockingham County. But we just love our little turkeys. We wouldn't do that. So we have all these things, but they're just out floating in space. So Bonnie puts together a program that says, if you're in the area, here's the things you can do. Here's the things you can do with your kids. Here's the things that you can do that you might like. Here's where you can buy some stuff that you're wanting to buy. And then here's a place you can stay. And sometimes they stay in Augusta County, sometimes they stay in Stanton, sometimes, you know, here in Bath County, Fort Lewis Lodge. If you're going east from here, you'll drive by a sign that says Fort Lewis Lodge. If you ever want to have a wonderful time, weekend, just lay back, that's a place to go. You're going to have a great meal, you're going to have nice comfort, you're going to be around something. Well, I didn't know anything like this still existed. It's just so peaceful, you know. So we have these things, but we don't even know about it. You know, you're on a board of supervisors, and folks don't ask us permission for everything. Sometimes they just do stuff, you know. And so we've got to be able to capture that to help them. So I think that's what we're trying to do out there, is find ways, you know, they can't go and advertise themselves, put an ad on a television station. You know, they only have one bedroom. You know, you can't afford to do that. But if you've got 50 places that have one bedroom and you market them together, then we can all work together. I'm just jumping around, so just bear with me. When we think about the jobs that come from tourism, my first thought is ladies cleaning the rooms and wait staff and things that are very seasonal. They don't make much money. And, you know, to me, we don't build a community on minimum wage. But what they were talking about here is on these farms with these folks. You know, in the old days, you had some sheep, you sheared them in the springtime, you sold the wool, and you had your seed money. Well, you can't sell wool for anything now, and the coyotes eat your sheep. So you don't have any of that. So you've got to have other ways to, you know, to make a little seed money, to do some things extra. So these are the folks that live on these farms who, in the meantime, can show you things, can sell you their products. There are all kinds of places in Augusta County where people are growing their products and selling it right there. People are driving from all over places to get this wonderful, good food. So from a supervisor standpoint, I tell the citizens, we're doing it to make you welcome. It's to show that we care about the folks that are already there, to show that we want to try and lift them up. It also gives us some advantages or rationale for helping develop infrastructures in those areas, like for wireless connectivity. You know, if you're going to have a farm, you've got to be able to look on a farm report every day. You need to be able to find out what's going on in the world. You need to transact your business. I mean, these guys look like, you know, me, but they're on top of things. They know stuff, and they're out to do it. So we can help, we can justify those investments in those areas to help those businesses. So as our farmers get wealthy, as retirees, One of the things that Bruce and I were talking about earlier was Highland County and Bath County only have like 6,000 people between the two counties, and it's going down. It's hard to operate a business with just 6,000 people, two governments. My end of the county, which you'll drive through if you go east in Augusta County, we are losing people. We are not growing. We've built fine schools in anticipation of growth, and we didn't get it. We could use some more people there. We could use some more people staying out in the countryside. When there's more jobs, when there's more things that you can get around to and say, hey, this is a pretty neat place, as they've talked about, maybe we can put some people in places where one time we didn't want them, but now we do. But it's a good program to have liaisons with all these other counties where we can tie in the trout from Highland County and their Maple Festival, and the people that are driving out here on their way to the homestead, coming through our county, maybe they want to do something else. If they would drive out into Swope, they would think they went into a different world. It is 1950. You could take a picture, aerial picture today and lay it against 1950 and it hadn't changed. You think, that's pretty neat, that's worth seeing, and that's worth keeping. But in that area, that's where Joe Shelton has his polyface farm. That's where we have a terrific operation where they sell pickles and stuff. So it's out there. So that's all I think I can think of right now, but it's a good program and you ought to think about it, and I think you can justify it if you go at it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. I'd like to take this opportunity to have the panel answer any questions anyone may have. So I'll open it up to the floor and raise your hands. And yes, sir.
I'm Jim Flotis from Montgomery County, and we were involved several years ago trying to get a very similar program to this. And I hope you can come down to our area and talk to our tourism director and give us a hand. But one of the things I wanted to say about funding sources, and you may know this, but we have just opened up a new tourism center in Montgomery County. And we're tied in with Blacksburg and Christiansburg. And one of the things that are helping fund this is 1 penny on the occupancy tax in the county. And with the two towns and ourselves, we generate almost probably $400,000 a year just on that 1 penny. So this might be a source you might look at to generate, some extra funds to help your cities and your towns and see if they can help you out. We're at a disadvantage in Montgomery County because we don't have any hotels. We don't have any real restaurants, but the towns do. And I'm looking on that for the Montgomery County area too. But it's a good way to generate income and give you some money to work with.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
In all my spare time, when I'm not being a supervisor, I run a grocery store. I sell local products. I sell Bill's cider. I sell his beef. One of the loudest competitive propositions in the world is selling a gallon of milk, but you can sell cheese, you can sell ice cream. I'm selling milk from Pennsylvania right now. I don't see the support infrastructure and educational opportunities for agriculture. Where's the School of Viticulture in this state? Okay? We're just great husbandry programs for breeding fabulous cattle that are feeder cattle that go out to IBP and Excel feedlots. Why aren't we finishing beef here and selling the finished beef product here? There's a whole lot I think the state could do to support agriculture and opportunities with both infrastructure. I mean, we could use a cannery in the state for processing. I mean, look at Great Mountain Lodge. They figured out how to sell apples 12 months out of the year. There's a lot we could do here with support infrastructure and education opportunities. Am I missing something? Is there something out there that's available that I haven't seen? Y'all run into it?
The Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, VDACS, they just announced a new program, agriculture and forestry program, for planning and also for infrastructure for value-added type products like that. I don't know if you're connected with that state agency, but
We took advantage, for instance, of their beginning farmers grant, which I thought was a great opportunity there. But we need some follow-up. We need to carry people across that finish line as far as I can tell. I'd love to see it from the state. I was hoping maybe I was missing it somewhere.
I will just tell you that again, I've done this for a long time, things happen incrementally. I've seen a migration, and it's not going to happen overnight. If you think about where we come from in agriculture, perhaps 10, 15 years ago, maybe even still today, large production agriculture was dictating, the marketing part of it. But there are lots of things going on now. I mean, we have funded in Highland County the butchering facility over there, and we've done a study in Grayson County to do the same thing to support grass-fed beef out of that region. We're starting to see some things happening. It's not organized yet in terms of like a singular focus. But I think we're starting to see changes. I know Matt Moore was at the commissioner was at the Fields of Gold launch. I think he gets it. So I think there's just it's going to be kind of a shift. That it's like most of the things that I've been involved with. That historically industry kind of led. And that's where most of the money came from. And if you stacked it up today, it's like what I do for a living, the large orchards kind of looked at us initially and said, that didn't make any sense to us. What is this cider business? We don't understand that. But they're producing apples and they're shipping all over the world. What's happening, and it's just now that we've got 6 cideries in Virginia, soon to be 10 or 15. They're already on the drawing boards. We're starting to get the orchards come to us and say, what kind of apples do you guys want? What do we need to produce? And we've got a grant that came in from the Department of Agriculture, not to me, but to the orchards, to help them restructure. So it is starting to happen. But you're right, it needs to happen quicker. It's just not going to be overnight.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My question, I guess, would be to Bonnie. I'm in Greene County, and which borders Rockingham. Skyline Drive divides. What is the best and easiest way for us to get Fields of Gold or quick Fields of Gold come to the east side of the ridge? Because we do have interest over there. There are farms over there that are already doing some of the things you're doing, like mazes and things for children each fall. And I didn't know if there was any way we can link being so close geographically.
Yeah, we talked about that because we've had Nelson County, which is on the other side. They've expressed an interest, and we haven't really defined how big we want Fields of Gold. I mean, we're thinking it's just going to be in the Shenandoah Valley, but that could be an opportunity. Why don't you start something over on your side?
Well, that's...
but yeah, I'll be glad to talk with you about that, but we haven't, this program is something that can grow, but we want to keep it, kind of manageable, and so we can, kind of focus on, the whole purpose of it was to market the Shenandoah Valley. That doesn't mean that we, can jump over.
Right, but I see the power of tourism. My wife manages a Lydia Mountain Lodge and cabin just east of Blue Ridge. And most folks come from the eastern D.C. or Tidewater area. And they come in and they like it so well and say, can you build us a cabin? So now there's 22 cabins scattered all around it that own from the outside that the tourism has brought to us. So that linking together with Fields of Gold, I like that idea.
I don't know if Bonnie has this in mind, but if you think about what they're doing, a lot of the things are, the farm is producing the thing right there to sell to restaurants. They have places where people drive down and get it. It could develop out of that we have a brand for beef that comes from the Field of Gold, Angus Gold or something. And it gets known as this. It has these basic criteria to it, to be qualified and that sort of thing. Then it develops into, you use local slaughterhouses instead of going up to Pennsylvania and whatever. But I can see this as being a way to build on that we brand the area and we tie more commercial with the tourism.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a quick comment for a community that might be trying to start out. We started with just the Buy Fresh, Buy Local, which I think Shenandoah Valley was one of the first areas in the state to do the Buy Fresh, Buy Local program. And this is, it's our version, I guess, Virginia's version of the sister, focused more on tourism. But if you're just beginning, the Buy Fresh, Buy Local program is a good way to start. It's got a ton of tools. It's got a great bunch of support. Your PVC, or maybe if you've got one of the Resource Conservation Development Councils that you're in, those are great ways to get that program implemented, which I think this program would easily spring out of. And there's a lot of support just to get that going. So it might be a way to start.
Yeah, thank you. And Department of Extension that manages the Buy Fresh, Buy Local. They are members of our steering committee, and they've been very supportive. Yeah, partner with them a lot.
Yes, ma'am.
If you could explain how you got the initial sort of funding to get something going.
Right. Yes, I guess it was about a year and a half ago, we started hearing a lot from our state leaders, Bob Goodlatte, Matt Moore, Senator Warner. They were all talking about agriculture and tourism and agritourism. And that's when we sort of started thinking, well, maybe we should do a regional initiative and kind of put the little, white paper together, little facts and figures, and I think there's some being passed around. And we,
Handouts out back.
the first place we went was we went and talked with Commissioner Matt Moore. He's the commissioner for the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. Sort of pitched the idea to him, and he was very supportive. Next, we went down to the state and met with Bill and his staff, and also somebody from the Virginia Tourism Corporation to say, hey, what do you think about this idea? Do you think there would be some funding to kind of get us started? And they said, yes, put a proposal together, tell us what you're thinking. But we had to go to a lot of people, behind the scenes. We went to all the local governments and gave them, our story, and went to different organizations to say, do you think this would work? So we did our homework up front, and we actually applied for the CDBG planning grant, which we matched. And so that gave us the seed money to really establish this. We couldn't have done any of those things. We couldn't have done the asset inventory, the economic impact analysis, the marketing, those agritourism workshops that we held. We didn't have any money to do that. That took a lot of resources. And so, thanks to DHCD and all of our local governments matching that grant, that got us started. Now, it's a matter of finding more funding. We've applied to Virginia Tourism Corporation. We've applied again to the Department of Housing and Community Development, so we can kind of build on, now that we know we've got our planning done, now we need to move into implementation and start implementing this, but it does take resources. And I like your idea about the occupancy tax and the food and beverage tax. That would be a great source of funding to keep this program going.
Any other questions for our panel?
I have a question, just kind
Yes,
of,
ma'am.
we have the Northern Neck Tourism Commission, that has basically doing the same type of thing you all are doing across 5 counties. But just keep in mind with the occupancy tax, excise tax, if the board of supervisors don't understand what its purpose is, then you wind up in a huge battle. Oh, we just have extra revenue, and it doesn't get spent the way it should be.
We read that now.
I just want to say there are handouts for those that haven't gotten them yet in the back, and also little evaluation forms, and I would be so happy if you would fill these out. You can either leave them on the table or give them to me, and I thank you.
I'd like to thank our panel for that.